Well, if you have trouble following these word problems, I think more than half of it is due to just your thinking, your mindset. If you have the correct mindset, you will be able to solve this, and it will be done without any help of anyone. You can do it on your own. So let's see if you agree with me. Yeah. So can you change this question to a question where instead of giving the total, just choose some number of dolls and number of toy cars and ask the total? That anyone can do, right? Okay, so pick a number for dolls. Okay, 21 dolls. Let's pick a smaller number. Let's see here. Okay, 20 dolls. Okay, 20 dolls. How much that cost? How much that cost? 20 dolls. Yeah, how do you get that? 20 times 12, right? So it's 240. Okay, if you bought 20 dolls, how many toy cars would there be? Huh? No. I'm not asking you to solve the problem. If you bought 20 dolls, how many toy cars would you buy? 10. How do you know it's 10 toy cars? Right, because there's 30 total, and it's really 10 toy cars is 30 minus 20. Right? That's what it is. And how much does this cost? Huh? 150, because how do you get that? 10 times 15, which is 150. Now, how much is the total? 390? 390, right? It's 390. If you add 240 plus 150, 390. Okay. And you can turn this into guess and check problem. If you want to increase the cost, right? Should you buy more dolls or less dolls? Is dolls cheaper or toys cheaper? Dolls are cheaper. So if you buy more dolls, would the cost go down or up? Yeah. Yeah, that's what it means, because total is 30. Yeah, so what does that mean? Okay, so if I want 390 to increase slightly, you want to buy more toy cars than less, right? So toy cars should be increased by to what? Suggest me a number. 11 toy cars? Then in that case, this should be 19 because they have to add up to 30, right? Okay. And then if you calculate, you do get 393. Okay. Now, such a method would be guess and check, and unfortunately, I can't give you credit for such a method, even if you get the correct answer. You have to come up with an equation. So, let's go back to this picture and have a separate plan to attack this. Okay? What you're going to do is you're going to say that X is the number of dolls. Then how much is the price for X number of dolls? So when we had 20 dolls, what did we do? We did 20 times 12, right? 12x. X times 12, or it will be equal to 12x, right? Now, if we bought X number of dolls, how many toy cars would we have bought? $30 minus X, right? Because they have to add up to 30. If we choose $20, then toy cars must be 10. If we say we bought $10, then toy cars should be 20. Is that okay? Now, what's the price of 30 minus x cars? This is what you get. Isn't that right? Because whatever that number is, so forget for a moment that this is something complicated. Just think of 30 minus x as a number. 30 minus x is a number. Whatever that number is, we have to multiply by 15 to get the price. Is that right? Okay, can we simplify this? 450 minus 15x, right? And I need the total to be 393. What is the total? How do you get the total? We add these two, right? 12x and 450 minus 15x. So we do 12x plus 450 minus 15x equals to 393. And 12x minus 15x is minus 3x plus 450 equals to 393. Let's add 3x to both sides. So that becomes 450 equals to 393 plus 3x. Subtract 393 both sides, and what do you get? 450 minus 393, what's that? What's 450 minus 393? 57. So you have 3x equals to 57. And therefore you get x equals to 57 divided by 3, which will turn out to be 19. So you must have bought $19. How many toy cars then? 11. You're done. Okay. So that's how you solve it. And the moral of the story is simply this. If you can't think about how to come up with an equation, first come up with some examples. Just suppose that number of dolls was 10. See if you can come up with a total. Okay? And you might even try to do guess and check a little bit. And at some point, if you replace the number of dolls as x, then if you investigate how you did the calculation, you can easily change all of these into expressions and equations. That's the goal, right? Yeah. Yes?
Question like this would be on the exam, right?
What is this? This is practice exam, right?
Right.
So that means...
I'm just making sure.
Oh, okay, yeah. You have a question? Oh. So this is, you have to distribute, right? So this is 30 times 15 minus x times 15. And then if you do 30 times 15, this is 450. And this will be 15x. Is that good? All right. All right, so this is the one that in the other video I made a mistake on. I was carelessly reading this. So make sure that you work with this video when you're reviewing, all right? Okay, so it's a word problem on speed, distance, and time. You have to always start by writing the basic formulas for speed, distance, and time, okay? And when you do that, just remember one thing. On the highway, or highway speed limit is in miles per hour. Okay. This is the only thing that you have to remember to recall all the formulas for distance, speed, and time. And the goal is not to memorize everything, but to derive it. Okay, so first of all, when you see highway speed limit is in miles per hour, what does that tell us? It tells us that speed is measured as what? Speed is distance over time, because miles is the way you measure the distance, and hours is how you measure the time. Is that okay? Yeah. So hours is how you measure the time, miles is how you measure the distance. Okay. So now, but then you have to solve this for D. How do you solve this for D?
You take speed and multiply by time.
Right, you multiply time both sides, right? So you do T, you multiply T both sides. And what happens over here is that T and T cancels. So you end up with TS equals to D. Okay? Now, how do you solve this for time? Yeah, you divide both sides by speed. So if you have TS divided by S equals to D over S, right? Then S and S cancels. And what do you get? You get T equals to D over S. Okay, at the end of the day, the only things that you have to write are S equals to D over T, D equals to ST, and T equals to D over S. But please don't memorize this. Take time to get these formulas by deriving them. You just do it this 3 times and you'll never forget it. Okay? If you try to memorize this, you're going to forget it maybe during the exam, which will be disastrous, or maybe you'll be able to remember during the exam, but you will have to remember it again in the final. And who knows whether you can remember it or not. Okay? So don't try to memorize when you can reason. As I said, do not underestimate your power to reason, and do not overestimate your power to memorize, because your memory is very poor. Okay, so hopefully I got my point across. Now what do you do? Once you wrote these formulas down, what do you do? Set up a table, yes. So you set up a table. And in most cases, it's just a table of 2 rows with a header. So it's just say speed, distance, time. Or, yes, speed, distance, time. It doesn't have to be in this order. You can put it in any order. And then you go back and start reading the question. Okay, so this initial preparation, the moment you realize that it's a word problem on speed, distance, and time, don't even read the question. Write the formulas first and then make the table. That's where you're going to begin. All right? So now let's actually try to figure out what's going on. 1 hour and 20 minutes after a hiker started down a mountain trail, a ranger started after him on horseback and overtook him in 40 minutes. Find the speed of each if the ranger rode 6 miles per hour faster than the man walked. Okay, so there are 2 things that have speed, distance, time. What are those? The hiker and the other? Ranger. And they will individually have speed, distance, and time. So your goal is to fill this table for each. Okay, hiker speed. Do we know the hiker speed? Yeah, you can say 6 miles per hour, but since we don't know, we'll just put it as X for now. Okay, okay, what about the distance? Do we know the distance? No, we just know that he went for some hours. So this should be unknown. Why? Do we know the time? That's where I made the mistake. Some of you say 1 hour and 20 minutes, and that was wrong. I was careless. If you read the question carefully, you see that by the time the ranger overtook the hiker went for another 40 minutes. It's not like hiker stopped right after 1 hour 20 minutes. He actually traveled for 2 hours. Okay, so 1 hour and 20 minutes plus 40 minutes. What's that? That's 2 hours. So you have to put 2. Okay. So sorry about that. The other video solving this was wrong. Okay, now the ranger's speed. Do we know the ranger's speed? X plus 6. Because it says that ranger rode 6 miles per hour faster than the man walked. So it's X plus 6. Now, what about the ranger's distance? It's the same because the ranger just caught up with hiker. So at that time, the distance they traveled would exactly match. Okay, now what about the time that the ranger rode? 40 minutes. Do I write 40? No, we don't. Why? Because the speed is measured in miles per hour. So this dictates that we have to use hours. Now, there is a way around it. You could change 6 miles per hour into something miles per minute. Actually, it'll be 0.1 miles per minute, but conversion of that is even more annoying. So you don't want to do it that way. So you want to stick to 6 miles per hour, but then change everything to hours. So this 40 minutes must be converted into minutes. And since some of you have trouble figuring out what 40 minutes is in terms of an hour, let's ask, what's a third of an hour? 20 minutes, right? What's a quarter of an hour? 15 minutes. You know that, right? So if you know that 20 minutes is a third of an hour, then 40 minutes is twice of that, right? So 40 minutes is equal to 2/3 of an hour. Okay? So you have 2/3 of an hour. All right, so once you filled in the table, and make sure you only have 2 unknowns, x and y, right? That means if you freely introduce unknowns in the first row, when you try to fill in the next one, do your best not to introduce any other variable. So don't say z or something. Then if you do that, then it becomes harder. So, and we managed to fill in everything with just introducing 2 unknowns, so that's great. Okay, now what do we do? What's the next step? No, you need an equation in order to solve, so you first have to write the equation. How do you get the equation from here? What is the equation? How do we get the equation? No. You use d equals to st. I mean, there's a reason why we started with this, okay? We started with this because we wanted to use it. So we start with d equals to st. So if I apply d equals to st over to the first row, what do we get? Y equals to s is x, and then t is 2, okay? So y is 2x. But don't just say that y is 2x. Say that you're applying d equals to st, this formula right here, into the first row. Okay? That's the right way to say it. Okay? Now, if you apply d equals st to the second row, what do we get? Right? Okay. So that gives you a system of equations to solve. If you have a system of equations to solve, let me make it as a system. Just give me a moment. No, not that. Okay, so we got this system. And we got it by applying to each row this equation. We have three equations to apply, but the middle one is our choice because this one doesn't have any fraction, whereas the other ones do have a fraction. Okay, so it's a system of equations. We have two equations with two unknowns. Great, that means we can solve it. How do you solve a system? How do you solve a system of equations? Yeah? You rewrite this as y equals to something, right? Right, y is equal to 2x, and then you plug that into the next equation. You solve for one variable, so maybe I should write this. To solve a system, first solve the first equation. Solve the first equation for y, and then plug it into the second equation. Okay. But this doesn't have to be always y. Sometimes it's easier to solve for x. In that case, you plug x into the next equation. So since y is 2x, what we can do is we can take the second equation, replace the y by 2x. So we take the y equals to this, but this y is now replaced by 2x. Okay, so now we have to solve this. How do you solve this? No, I don't like that.
Multiply both sides by 3.
Yeah, you want to multiply both sides by 3. Why? Because you can get rid of the fraction. You can get rid of the denominator. Remember, that was my favorite method, and so will that be for you. Because we don't like fractions, do we? Who here loves fractions? No, you don't count. All right, so, yeah, so most of you don't like fractions, so we don't want to use fractions. And if we use multiplication by 3, that's going to cancel. It's going to cancel this 3. I'm using this bloody red to kill the denominator. Okay, and then you get 6x equals to x plus 6 times 2. Now, if you multiply 2 both sides, if you distribute the 2 to this right side, 2 times x and 2 times 6, you get 6x equals to 2x plus 12. Okay, now let's subtract 2x both sides. What do you get? You get 4x equals to 12 by subtracting 2x, right? So finally, what is the value of x? 3. If you divide both sides by 4, you get x equals to 3. Okay, so what does that tell us? That this is 3, and this would be 9, right? So if you go back, if you read the question, find the speed of each of the ranger. So that's what it is. Now, if you're interested with the distance, now we know that since y is equal to 2x and x is 3, this would be 6. So the hiker and ranger both went for 2 miles. Okay. But the question here is asking for the speed, so the answer would be 3 and 9 miles per hour. So here, I might say here, since x plus 6 is equal to 9, the hiker's speed was 3 miles per hour, and ranger's speed was 9 miles per hour. A lady drove to a city 30 miles away to shop and returned home in the evening. She spent 15 minutes longer driving the return trip than in the going, and she drove 3/4 as fast when returning as she did when going to the city. how long did it take her to drive to the city? Okay, so again, the same idea. You need to start with speed is equal to distance over time, which is obvious if you think about miles per hour being this unit for the speed. And then if you multiply t both sides, you get d equals to s times t. And then if you divide s both sides, you get t equals to d over s. So you get that, and then you have to make a table, usually 2 rows wide, 2 rows long, and you put speed, distance, time. Not necessarily in this order. It could be dst or any order. So you have hiker and the ranger. Okay. No, not the hiker and ranger. It's this time it's to the city, and back to home. Okay. All right. So let's now read. A lady drove to a city 30 miles away to shop and returned home in the evening. She spent 15 minutes longer driving the return trip than the going, and she drove 3/4 as fast when returning as she did when going to the city. Okay. All right. So do we know the speed? The answer is no, we don't. Do we know the distance? 30. That's for sure. The city is 30 miles away. Do we know the time? We don't, so we put y. Okay, so we have introduced 2 unknowns. Let's now go to the second row, back to home. What do we do? Do we know the speed? Speed is 3/4 as fast. So we have to think about what that means. 3/4 as fast. We'll talk about that later. Okay, distance. 30 miles. Okay, because it's the same distance. What about the time?
15, so
Y plus 15. Now there's something that I don't like about that. Yeah. Yeah, if we use miles per hour, then we should really be using 1/4 of an hour. However, if we, instead of using miles per hour, if we ditch miles per hour and go with miles per minute, which is an unconventional unit for speed, but I mean, you can do it. Yeah. You can choose any unit for the distance and any unit for the time. And it can be, if you do something per something, that's going to give you a unit for the speed. So certainly it's possible. So if you want to solve this using plus 15, that would mean that, so put something like this, and you need to put an asterisk and explain what you mean by that. So we use miles per minute for the unit of speed. Okay? And this is perfectly fine because nowhere here uses miles per hour anywhere. I don't see the miles per hour anywhere. So we're free to change that. Okay? All right. But now let's think about 3/4 as fast. Okay, give me suggestions. Somebody said x minus 3/4. Okay. Any other? Yeah? X times 3/4. What else is there? You could also divide, right? X divided by 3/4. Or you could also add. That's probably not right, but okay. Should be one of those. Oh, you could also be the other way. You could also do like 3/4 minus x, or 3/4 divided by x. Yeah, something like that. Okay. So there are more choices, but there aren't infinitely many. There's only like 6 possible choices. Okay. So it's more like a multiple choice. But still, you don't want to just pick something and get it wrong. So instead of this, try to follow my suggestion. Come up with an example where you can talk about 3/4 of a speed. So suppose the woman drove 80 miles per hour to a city. Then 3/4 of 80 miles per hour is, so I know 80 miles per hour is rather fast. It's amazing that she didn't get caught. But I mean, 80 is a number that I could easily divide by 4. So, okay, so what's 3/4 of 80 miles per hour? 60, right? Yeah, 3/4. Oh, another thing that you should think is, it took longer to drive back home. So was she faster coming back or slower coming back? Slower, right? That's why it took longer, right? So coming back, this 3/4 as fast must mean something that's slower, right? So 3/4 as fast as 80 miles per hour is, you kind of see the reasonable answer is 60 miles per hour, right? Okay, how did you get 60 from 80? No, you multiply. If you multiply 80 times 3/4, then you're going to get 60. Now, of course, in this exam, you have access to a calculator, so you can quickly try out all of these and see which one gives you 60 miles per hour. So it's not something hard to figure out. Okay. You have to bring a scientific calculator. No graphing calculator allowed. Okay? Yes. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. So back to home. What's the speed again? What did I put here? No, that was like the 60 miles per hour is just to make a point. We see that 60 is equal to 80 times 3/4. Okay? So really what should be here should be x times 3/4. Okay. So that's what we have. Now what do we do? We apply this middle one, right? Yeah. Distance equals speed times time. So what is that? 30 is equal to x times y. So you have 30 equals to x times y. Okay, and then what about this one? It says 30 equals to x times 3/4 times y plus 15. And when you do this, it's absolutely important that you put this parenthesis. If this pair of parentheses is missing, then your answer won't come out as correct. So it's very important that you have this parenthesis. Okay, so you have this. Again, we have a system. How do you solve a system again? How do you solve for a system? Yeah? Yeah, you solve for y for the first one and plug into the next one. So if you solve this for y, what do you get? Y is? How do you solve for y? No, see, x is multiplied to y. So what gets rid of x if it's multiplied? Division. So you have to divide by x. So it's 30 over x. Okay? And that gets plugged into the next one. So we are going to plug that into the y here. This y is now 30 divided by x. Okay, so we have some complicated looking formula, but complicated looking equation, but it's not too bad. So what should we do first? No, we don't get rid of this 4. That's the bad guy. How do you get rid of it? Multiply by what? 4. So we're going to multiply both sides by 4. Multiply by 4. So that you have 4 canceling this 4. Okay, perfect. So you have 120 on the left side because 3 times 4 is 12. Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So y equals 30 over x. How come you got rid of the 30 over x for the other system of the equation?
Where did I get rid of 30 over x?
On the top, for this one up.
This one?
No,
This one?
yeah, it says 30 over x.
I divided both sides by x, right?
Yeah. So y would equal 30 over x.
So you have 30 over x equals to xy divided by x. And then x and x cancel, so it leaves you with y equals to 30 over x.
Yeah.
And what am I doing with that? I'm using this to be plugged into this equation right here.
Yeah, so wouldn't it still be 30 over x?
So this thing here goes in here. So that y is replaced by 30 over x. That's what I have. Is there something wrong with this? Okay, so you have 3 times x, and then 30 over x plus 15. Okay, now let's multiply. Now we'll distribute so that it becomes 120 equals to 3x times 30 over x plus 3x times 15. Okay. And I like this because x and x cancels again. If you have something on top and something on the bottom, they cancel. So you have this x and this x. They cancel. So you end up with 120 equals to, what's 3 times 30? Oh. 3 times 30 is 90, so you have 90. And what's 15 times 3? 15 times 3 is 45. Okay. So once you get rid of the x's, we just have 3 times 30, which is 90. 3x times 15 is 45. So now you can subtract 90 both sides. So 120 minus 90 gives you 45x. And then 120 minus 9 is 30 equals to 45x. So what's that? That's x equals to 30 over 45, which is, well, the top and bottom are divisible by 5, so it'll be 6 over 9. So 30 is 6 times 5, and 45 is 9 times 5. So if you cancel the 5s, you get that. And then they're both divisible. 6 and 9 are divisible by 3, so you get 2/3. Okay, just a minute. Okay. All right, so do you have any questions so far? Is this okay? The rest is just algebra. Okay, so once you have x equals to 2/3, let's see, what are we trying to do? How long did it take to drive to the city? So it's asking for this one. This is the actual value that we're looking for. And since this is too far away, let's copy that again. So we have x as 2/3. Okay? And we are looking for y. How do you get y? Well, we have two options. One is to say time is what? Time is distance over speed. Right? That's one way to say it. But if you don't like that, you can still use the same thing. You can use distance equals to speed times time for everything. So that gives you Distance is 30 equals to speed is 2/3 times time. And that's time is y, right? So that's what we're looking for. How do you solve this? You multiply by 3 first. Again, the same idea. We hate fractions. So what do we do when we see fractions? We destroy them. We kill them, right? So we get 90 equals to 2y. And what's that? Y is 90 divided by 2, which is 45. Okay. So what's the answer? 45 minutes. That's the answer. Now, we were using minutes as the unit for the time. However, if you did the same calculation, but with instead of 15, if you use 1/4 for that one, what's going to happen is that your answer will come out as hours. So 45 minutes is 15 times 3. 15 is 1/4 of an hour, right? So this will equal to 3/4 of an hour. So either 45 minutes or 3/4 of an hour, either are valid answers. Is that good? Okay, there are two cell phone companies that offer different packages. Company A charges a monthly service fee of $36 plus $0.07 per minute. Company B charges a monthly service fee of $48 plus $0.02 per minute talk time. Okay, write a linear equation that models the packages offered by both companies. Let's start with A. Okay, company A, how much do they charge? If we say X is the, so if X minutes of talk time was used, A would be what? What would be the price of A? 36 plus 0.07x. Okay? And then what about company B? It'll be 48 plus 0.02x. X is the talk time. Okay? Now, if this just made sense to you, that's awesome. Okay? If this just made sense to you, then the rest of the question will be easy to do. However, for some of you, this might not be so clear. So again, if you have a word problem and if you don't know how to express it in equations, don't give up right away. Okay? You can do it. You have to have the right mindset. You have to be a little bit more positive. And the way you stay positive is by assuming some minutes and see what happens. So suppose you're using 100 minutes. How much would company A charge? Well, they're going to charge you $36 no matter what, right? But in addition, 100 minutes of talk time, how much is that? What's the price for 100 minutes of talk time? Every minute is 7 cents. If you use 2 minutes, that's 14 cents, right? At 3 minutes, it'll be 21 cents, right? So 100 minutes, it'll be $7. And you get $7 by doing 0.07 times 100, right? And therefore, this will be $43. Now, did this make sense? Mm-hmm. This should have made sense. I don't think anyone here would have problem understanding this one. Okay? If this made sense, and let's do the B as well. B, how would you do the B? B would be $48 plus 0.02 times 100, right? If this made sense, then all you have to do is now go back and scratch out the 100 and replace that by X. Now, that means this 100 should be replaced by X. This 100 should be replaced by X. There you have it. Those are the formulas. Was it hard? No, it wasn't. It's easy. So don't give up. You can do it. All right, so now let's go with the second question, part B. How many yield equal monthly statements from both companies? Okay, so how many yield equal monthly statements from both companies? Well, how do you do that? That's when they charge exactly the same amount, right? 36 plus 0.07x is equal to 48 plus 0.02x. And we're looking for the amount of talk time that would make the two companies charge the exact same amount. So we have this equality, and you can solve this by first subtracting 36 both sides. And now subtract 0.02 both sides. And that gives you 0.05, because 7 minus 2 is 5, equals to 12. And therefore, if you solve by dividing 12 by 0.05, you get 240. Okay? You can check this by your calculator. Okay, so the answer is 240 minutes of talk time. Now, let's think about what this means. Suppose you use less than 240 minutes. Let's say this company also offers unlimited text, and you usually correspond using text, not much talk time. So maybe you're just spending like 100 minutes per month. In that case, should you go with company A or company B? How many of you say A? How many of you say B? It should be A. Okay? Yeah. So think about that, okay? This is an actual money-saving tactic. And by the way, if you're an ITT business major, ITT major, then you get to use this all the time. When you choose a factory to manufacture your goods, or if you choose somebody to do the service, usually if you go there and ask, they don't give you just a flat rate. They say, here's the base fee, and as soon as you do something, then we charge something per each use or something. So you end up with these equations and such a question of seeing when they break even, and a question of whether you're going to be using more than this or less than this and choosing company or A or B. That is a valid question that you're going to do. So it's a very useful kind of math that we're talking about here. Okay, last word problem here. The length of a rectangular label is 2.5 centimeters, less than twice the width. The perimeter is 43 centimeters. Find the area. Use algebra to solve problems. The guess and check method will not give you any credit. Okay, so you have a word problem. This time it's a geometry problem. It's talking about perimeter, length, width. When you have a geometry problem, what's something that you must absolutely do? Draw the diagram, okay? So in fact, if you have a 10-point word problem, just having a rectangle and labeling it correctly will earn you 1 point. That's something, right? So you don't want to just let this one go. Just put this one as X, and this as Y. Done. You have 1 point earned. Okay, so promise me that you're going to do this. Draw it and then label something. Now let's try to see how to convert this into equations. But before that, we'll have to say X is, what's X? X is the length, and let's say Y is the width. Okay, so we have length and width. And by the way, it doesn't have to be this way. It could be X here and then Y, because there's no like common agreement with which one should be length and which one should be width. So we'll just go by this one. Okay, now let's see. We have to convert this into an equation. How do you convert this into an equation? X equals 2y minus 2.5. Okay. Now, if that made sense right away, good for you. Okay. But what if it doesn't? If it doesn't, then try to do it slowly. So first of all, the length of the rectangular label, what is that? That's our x, isn't it? So replace that by x. Now, what's the width? The width is y. Replace that by y. Okay, that looks a lot simpler. Okay, what is twice y? 2 times y, right? Twice of something is just doubling it, right? 2y. Okay, and then I know what to do with is. What do you do with is? Equal sign. Okay, so that you can do, right? So up till this point, everything should be straightforward. Now, what is not so straightforward is what to do with this 2.5 centimeters less than 2y. And again, please don't try to just go straight ahead and write this as an equation because you're likely get it wrong. Instead, think of an everyday use of this sentence. So let's say your friend is 7 foot tall. Okay? And you are 2.5 feet less than your height is 2.5 feet less than him. So this is a perfect usage of 2.5 feet less than, right? Do you agree? Now think about what your height would be. Can you answer that? What is that? 4.5. 7 minus 2.5, right? 7 minus 2.5, it'll be 4.5 feet. Okay, so you'll be 4.5 feet tall. Or 4 feet and 6 inches. Right? Okay, yeah. But you get the point, right? Yeah. So what do you do? Should this be 2.5 minus 2y or 2y minus 2.5? 2y minus 2.5. It should be obvious after this example. That's why I'm saying it's so important to come up with your own example. Don't try to memorize things. It will be without avail because all the word problems are different. You can't memorize your way out of a word problem. Instead, what you can do is you can think of your examples and come up with an equation. That you can do. Trust your reasoning power. Okay. All right, so you have, therefore, x equals to 2y minus 2.5 after agreeing with this. Okay? Okay, so that part is good. Now, what about the perimeter? The perimeter is 43 centimeters. How do we change that? What should we do with the perimeter is 43 centimeters? How do you get that? Well, you first have to think about what the perimeter is. Don't just stare at the screen or don't just stare at the word problem hoping something to fall in its place because that doesn't happen. You have to constantly be asking yourself what this means. So you should be asking, what is the perimeter? Well, what is the perimeter here? It's around, right? It's the length around. So what is there? There's x here, that's y there, there's another x here, there's a y there. So what's that? That's x plus y plus y. Isn't that right? That's the perimeter. Make sense out of it. It'll be easy. So you have perimeter is x plus y plus y. And that should equal to 43, right? Okay. Therefore, what do we have? We have 2x plus 2y equal to 43. So that's great because now I have two equations with two unknowns, x and y, which we can solve. How do you solve it? Solve for one variable, plug into the next. Before I said solve for y, but this is too convenient for us to just say x equals 2y minus 2.5. So it's not a good idea to solve this for y. Rather, just say x is equal to 2y minus 2.5, and you're going to plug this into the second one. Okay. So we're going to say that what we will do is we take the second equation, you vacate x. So this was, so we want to say x was here. Something like that, right? Yeah. X was here. Now what's there? 2y minus 2.5 is there now, okay? So put there. And then you multiply by 2, expanding, you get 4y. What's twice of 2.5? 2.5 plus 2.5 is 5, plus 2y equals to 43. So that if we add 5 both sides, we get 6y equals to 48, which would imply that y is equal to 48 divided by 6. What's that? 8. Okay, so we have 8 centimeters. Okay, then what is x? Whenever you find the value of y, then you can plug it back into the original equation. So x is equal to 2 times y minus 2.5, but since y is 8, you get 2 times 8, which is 16, minus 2.5, which is equal to 13.5. Okay, so we got x, we got y. Seems like we've completed it, but wait, if you go back and read the question, it says, find the area. That was the question. So we have yet to find the area. How do you find the area of a rectangle? X times y. So what you do is you multiply 13.5 times 8, and that's going to be equals to 108 square centimeters. Okay? So that's the answer. Okay, that's all for today.